What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about John Mayer's new album, SOB Rock. So this is my review of the album, and again on this channel that's what we do. We're going to talk a little music, give you my opinion on how I feel about the albums and what I think are the top songs off of it, plus a little back history on the artist and yeah, just generally musical things in general. So let's get into it. So, SOB Rock, John Mayer's brand new album, released July 16th of 2021, has a runtime of 38 minutes with 10 songs, and it is his first studio album since 2017's album, The Search for Everything. So let's talk John Mayer for just a moment. We all have heard John Mayer. John Mayer is in pop culture just like anybody else that's in the spotlight. But for guitarists, John is a master guitar player. It did take me a few years to come around to John's music. His early stuff like Room for Squares just wasn't for me. But I'll be honest, I went and saw him with the Dead and Company when he started doing that gig back in 2016. And that's what opened my eyes to how phenomenal of a guitar player that John Mayer is. So if you have not listened to John Mayer, I would suggest that you do. That you get into some of his stuff. One of my favorite albums by him is Continuum, obviously, and then Born and Raised. Born and Raised for me is one of his best albums. Maybe I'll do a video on that later, but here we're going to talk about SOB Rock. So just a little history. I always like to talk gear because I'm a gearhead. Being a guitar player, I always like to talk about artist gear. So let's get into that. John's always been known for boutique amplifiers and Fender guitars. So the surprising thing to me is when he switched to Paul Reed Smith guitars about 3 years ago, and I really didn't know the reason why. So as I was prepping for this video to talk about SOB Rock, I had dug into that a little bit, and I found an interview with John where he was talking about how Fender would not listen to him when he had ideas for a guitar to take the Fender Stratocaster guitar to the future or bring it updated. And why on earth Fender would not listen to a guy like John Mayer is beyond me. So if anybody from Fender happens to see this, I mean, anyway. So John was saying that he didn't know who to talk to at Fender and nobody would listen. He would try to call, he'd get bounced around, whatever. And then he met Paul Reed Smith. Paul Reed Smith builds guitars in Maryland. I think it's Maryland. And some of the guys that use his guitars is Carlos Santana, Mark Tremonti from Creed, Alter Bridge. There's a lot of guys that use Paul Reed Smiths. I personally have not had a lot of experience with Paul Reed Smiths. There's not a local dealer here in my area, so I've had limited contact with Paul Reed Smiths. But anyways, so John has always been a Fender guy. He's always been a Stratocaster guy. So with Paul Reed Smith, he developed a guitar called the Silver Sky. And a lot of people say, oh, he ruined the Strat. It looks like a Strat. It's just a Paul Reed Smith Strat. It's Strat. Okay, so one, let me put this out there that obviously, like I said, I have not played one. If anybody around my area or anybody wants to reach out and get one in my hands, I will do a video on one. I'm just going to say that because I would be really interested to hear pickups on it. I would be really interested to feel the neck of it. I'm more of a maple neck Strat guy, but I've seen maple and rosewood. Um, so yeah, if you have played one, obviously drop a comment below and give us a review of it. There's reviews out there of the guitar, but let's start a conversation. That's what this channel is for. Anyway, so John gets in touch with Paul Reed Smith. I've met Paul Reed Smith, and he says, "Hey, listen to me," and he did, and the result was the Silver Sky. Um, I have noticed in reviews that the tone knobs, volume knobs are different than a Fender. They're more useful. The pickups are powerful in any position. So yeah, he has started using the Silver Sky exclusively. I know when if you watch Jimmy Kimmel, he's playing one in pink. They call it Roxy Pink. I think that guitar is awesome. I would love to play one in the pink. So there's that, and then he's actually this tour, this Dead and Company tour that he's doing now currently in 2021, the summer run. He's playing the Silver Sky guitars. I've only seen the video of him doing that exclusively on this tour. So there's that. So for guitars, he's using his not Fender. Sorry, I'm used to saying Fender for him, but he's using his Paul Reed Smith's Silver Skies. Amplifiers. So for this particular project, if you watch the video for Last Train Home, you see multiple amplifiers. Now this project to me is set in the 80s, and I really feel like John was doing a homage to Eric Clapton's Journeyman album, which is some of Eric's best work. If you have not listened to Journeyman, I personally would suggest that you go listen to Journeyman first and then check out SOB Rock, because that's what got us here. So yeah, the lead-off song "Last Train Home" sounds to me like it belongs on Journeyman. So yeah, so amplifiers. Let's talk amplifiers. So, like I said, the Eric Clapton Journeyman a little bit. That was Clapton's Soldano custom amplification era. And if you've never heard a Soldano or Soldano, I think it's actually pronounced Soldano, but down here in the South, we say Soldano, I guess. But the Soldano SLO 100 was developed by Mike Soldano in the 80s to be a high gain amp, but be very articulate. It is my favorite amplifier. To me, there's not a better amplifier out there than a Soldano SLO 100. People that have used them are Mark Knopfler, Eric Clapton, Warren Haynes, Michael Hauser from Widespread Panic. The list goes on and on. So Journeyman is all, not all, but mostly Soldanos. So for this, I hear on Last Train Home, I hear a Soldano sound. In the video, he has a Soldano in the video. Whether he really used one in the studio, I don't know. On the Jimmy Kimmel, he does not have a Soldano when he appeared on Jimmy Kimmel to do Last Train Home. It's two Dumbles, which Dumbles are built by a man in California, Alexander Howard Dumble. Very reclusive, very enigmatic. His amplifiers sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars if you can find them. In my 40 years of existence, personally up close, I have only seen two. I've seen them on stage with Sonny Landreth and some other guys, but I have never had the opportunity to plug in and play one. I have seen them in a museum, but not out in the wild, as I like to say, and I definitely have not had the opportunity to play one. So if you've played one, comment below. Let us know what you think. I know they're articulate. He builds those amps specifically for the player. So John has a steel string Stinger. That's a lot to say. That amp was what Stevie Ray Vaughan did use later in his career. For guitar nerd talk, it's a very clean amplifier, and it's very loud. It probably pushes 140, 150 watts, and the more you turn it up, it just stays crystal clear and clean. It does not distort. It does not give you that dirty guitar sound that we're used to. His other Dumble, I think, is an overdrive special. I've seen photos of it. Obviously, I've never seen it up close. And then on the Jimmy Kimmel, it looks like he's using a Fender Deluxe or maybe a Super Reverb, but I think it's a Fender Deluxe. Pedal-wise, there's a lot of debate about John Mayer's pedals. And I'm not going to get in and do specifics. I know what I've seen in photos. So there's a wah, there's a tuner, there's an Ibanez TS10 distortion from the 80s, which go on eBay and see what they're going for. He has driven up the prices of those single-handedly. To me, it's like an 808. It's just a later version of it, Ibanez TS808, which I've used. I own one. But the TS10, that's his pedal of choice. There's a way huge Octopus. He has a Klon Centaur, which go to eBay and type in the word Klon and see what they go for. I just looked the other night, and a gold colored one I think was right at $5,000. Bill Flanagan that builds that pedal is the same way as Alexander Dumble. He's enigmatic. He's reclusive. So those are hard to come by, and anybody that's everybody in the professional or famous guitar players uses a Klon Centaur. So yeah, I've checked them out. I've had the opportunity to play one. Great pedal. So that's what he's using pedal-wise. There's some other things on the board. I think he has a Phase 90. For the Dead Company, he's using a Qtron Ottawa, but for this, I don't think he's using that. So in the studio, I read the other day that he did use a fractal amp. A fractal amp is basically like plugging into a computer, and it emulates amplifiers. So that set a lot of people on fire in the guitar world, that this guy didn't use real amplifiers. In the studio situation, that's a smart choice. Your settings are there. You don't. There's no worrying about the room. You can configure mic configurations. It emulates all that. So that's a smart choice for him. So, like I said, for this, I think I do hear a Soldano on the album. Maybe it's just a Dumble with a TS10 in front of it. But in my mind, I would really hope that he used a Soldano, because, like I said, that is my favorite amp. They currently do build amplifiers. They do a 100-watt version and a 30-watt version. The video, it looks like John has an older 100-watt version. It's hard to tell because they have not changed the look of that amplifier from the time that they've been built. They just changed colors. My dream amplifier would be an SLO 30, then one of the new 30 watts in their purple. That would be the amplifier for me. I haven't tried the 30 watt, but I know what an SLO sounds like, and that's the amplifier. I mean, yeah. So moving on from this, my lusting of Soldano amps. So let's get into this. So like I always do, I'm going to give you my top 3 songs of what I feel like are the jewels of the album, and I tend to stay away from the popular releases or what you would think would be the singles. I like to dig into albums and really get people to listen to an artist's not singles. They're cuts that they have poured into their artistic mind and given us. John did say that these 10 songs were prepared for this album, unlike his previous release where songs came in, other ones went out, and it was back and forth and the door was open. He did state that he went into the studio to put these 10 songs down and give us this body of work, and that's why they have a common theme of that 80s feel. If you're familiar with that era of music, like this has Don Henley feel. Of course, I mentioned the Eric Clapton. There is a song on here that has the Dire Straits kind of feel to it, Mark Knopfler kind of thing. John nails all that feel, but still being John Mayer. And that's what I really like about an artist that can tip their hat, so to say, to their influences and to what their ear hears, but still be true to themselves and not just mimic another artist. That's what artistry is, and that's what guitar playing is moving it forward from what our predecessors, what the guys before us left us. So you could trace this back to even Robert Johnson with the blues, but I like that John still has a blues feel to this, and I'll mention some of that as we talk about some of the tracks. So what are my top three? So we'll start out, number 3 for me is track number 8 on the album. It's called Till the Right One Comes. Till the Right One Comes, it just has a good Don Henley kind of feel to it with his playing, and it's a laid back, just real great song. Lyrically, you know, he's telling a great story. He paints a great picture. His song runs about 3 minutes 39 seconds. Like I said, it is number 8 on the album. Number 2 for me on this album. It was kind of hard to narrow it down because I like the album overall, but for me it would be, I guess, I Just Feel Like. Number 7 on the album, and it runs 4 minutes and 46 seconds. This to me has, and maybe I'm a little off with this being the 80s, but I do feel in the intro, I feel a little bit of that Dad and Company influence. I feel that there is a little touch of Gray influence in this song. It doesn't have the up-tempo beat that Touch of Grey does from the Grateful Dead, but just the chord changes and the overall vibe of the song, I get that Dead and Company kind of influence that he's gotten while he's been on tour with them. And lyrically, whatever he was feeling at that moment, he conveys it really well. So yeah, song runs about 4 minutes 46 seconds. It flows well. So yeah, the number 7 song on the album is my number 2 pick for the top 3. And then number 1, excuse me just a second. You gotta have your lucky purple cup. So number 1 off of this album has got to be, for me, Shouldn't Matter But It Does. Second cut on the album, 3 minutes 56 seconds. It has an acoustic backing to it, and I don't really know what he was going through at this moment or what he was feeling, but it's very honest. You know, he says, I should have just cried. I should have just been honest. It's very insightful for John. And I can relate to it throughout my life. Some things matter. Some things don't matter, but sometimes they do, right? So that's kind of what he's getting at. It shouldn't matter, but it does. The little things in life shouldn't matter, but it does. So like I said, song runs 3 minutes 56 seconds, and this is my number 1 song on the album. So if I was going to hand you the album and say, hey, here's the 3 I think you should start with, it would be Till the Right One Comes, I Guess I Just Feel Like, and Shouldn't Matter, But It Does. Now, another track on this album that we have to talk about is Last Train Home. It was the first song off the album, and I just want to mention it basically just because this to me is Journeyman era Eric Clapton all day long. The guitar tone, the feel, the vibe of the song. So that's why I said earlier that you need to listen to Journeyman before you listen to this album. When you hear Last Train Home, you'll understand. Listen to the open track of Journeyman, which is Pretending, and then right back after that, listen to this, or listen to Alibis off of Journeyman, and then listen to this, and you'll have the feel of the album and what you will experience when you're listening to SOB Rock. So, on my jam scale that I always do, which is 5 jams being outstanding and 1 jam being please don't listen to this. Don't waste your time. I'm going to give this a 4 jams out of 5. Reason being is if you're looking for upbeat, hard rock, something to get you going while you're driving, you're not going to find this. If you're coming home from work and you're sitting down on the couch and you're wanting to unwind and relax, this is the album that's going to do it for you. I do recommend the album. This would be a good introduction to some of John's vocals. I don't think that if you have not listened to John Mayer, I would not start here. Like I said earlier in the video, I would start with Continuum and then Born and Raised and then get to SOB Rock. Continuum is a great album. So that's my review of John Mayer's SOB Rock. Like always, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the album. Let's start a conversation about the music. And hit that subscribe button so you can keep up to date with me sitting around just talking about music. Music is my passion. That's what I like to do. So let's start a conversation. And remember, music is love, and love is music.